Hello, I am Gail Ecker. I'm Director of Equine Guelph, and I'm here today with Mr. Bob Webb, who's going to help us learn about fire prevention in the horse stable. Welcome, Bob. I'm really glad to have you. And can you give us just a little bit of background about who you are?
My background is I was a Chief of Fire Prevention for the City of Toronto, and I was with Toronto Fire Service for 34 years. After I retired in 2000, I went to work for Woodbine Racetrack, and I was hired as the Manager of Fire Safety for Woodbine and Mohawk, and I provided all the training and background checks and fire prevention for both Woodbine and Mohawk.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know as a horse owner, a fire in the barn is the stuff of nightmares. And
Correct.
So what makes a barn so high risk for fires?
Basically, the highest risk in a barn is when you have the straw and the hay. The combination along with electrical equipment and any heating appliances makes it a very high risk for fire.
All right. So what would you say are the top reasons for barn fires?
I think it breaks down into faulty equipment and not looking after the safety within a barn and keeping an eye on the cleanliness of a barn and the safety and the storage of the straw and hay.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what the owner can do to prevent fire and reduce that risk. So let's look at electrical first. What should I as a horse owner be doing in my barn regarding electrical?
Electrical equipment must be CSA or ULC approved. We definitely want to make sure that the electrical equipment is up to code. And it's a good idea to have your electrical panel and electrical equipment inspected by an electrician, qualified electrician, at least once a year. And also, wherever your panel is located in the barn, make sure that it's not obstructed with any material, straw or hay or brooms or things like that, so that in the event of an emergency, you can get to it quickly and shut off any of the breakers and that type of thing.
All right. And is the type of lighting that I use in my barn an important consideration, just normal light bulbs, or should I be doing something else with light bulbs?
That's a good point. The more things have changed in the electrical appliances and equipment that is sold today, LED lighting is very good. It's not a very hot bulb. And also what we always recommended at Woodbine and Mohawk was that you enclose the light bulb fixture, if it was a single light bulb, enclose it in a glass globe so that in the event the bulb does break, then it's contained within that globe unit, the glass globe unit.
All right. Because if it breaks, then
the hot glass would fall down onto the straw or hay or shavings within a barn, and it could ignite and cause a fire.
Right. And then one of the biggest things, you've already mentioned this, is about the hay, the straw. That is a fuel source. We look at it as hay, but
Correct.
It's actually a fuel source. So what should we be doing with that?
Ideally, if a farmer or an owner of a racing facility would be to have the straw and hay and shavings stored in a separate fire-separated part of the building or in a separate building on its own. But if you can't do that, and if you only have one barn, what they can do is keep it at one end of the barn in a separated area away from the horses so that you're not getting the shavings and the straw and hay mixed up with the horses or close to the electrical equipment.
All right, so there are some things we can do without
Correct.
building a new building.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Correct.
So now let's talk about exit doors, because they should be an important part of your strategy, aren't they?
Correct, correct. That's a key point. Exit doors and aisles leading to exit doors and corridors in a barn are important because that's the main exiting for the horses to get out in the event of an emergency, as well as staffing. So it's a key point to make sure that they're not blocked with straw or hay bales or pails or equipment being left against the door or blocking against the door. Or even in the case of the sulkies, if you have sulkies stored within your barn, don't block the exits or the exit door, period. Right. And especially with this kind of weather we're having now, to ensure that the snow is kept clear from the door so that the door can open all the way.
Okay. Now, I have had someone tell me that all barns should have an exit door on every stall. Are there benefits of that, do you think? We have bad weather up here, so how much is that giving us as a horse owner if I was to build a new barn and put exit doors on each stall?
I think as far as an exiting from a barn is a great idea. The only problem is with trying to ensure that every stall has an exit door, both inside the barn and outside the barn. It can be expensive, as well as now when you have the doors on the outside of a barn, especially in winter weather here in Ontario, you've got to ensure that outside is plowed and make sure that the doors will open up and allow the horses to get out. But it is a great idea, okay? It could be more expensive for retrofitting or renovating a barn to add these doors, whereas new construction, it could be added to it, but then you're getting into the expense of that as well.
Now let's talk a little bit about the law. What does the law say has to be there?
Presently in Ontario, the Ontario Building Code and the Ontario Fire Code are silent to requiring owners of those facilities to have or require fire protection equipment or fire separations within their barns.
Equine Guelph education programs, we focus on prevention, not suppression, because we would like to help horse owners prevent that fire from getting started. But let's talk about some of the suppression systems and other fire protection methods that we could have in a barn.
That's a very good question. Basically, what we tried to recommend when I was at Woodbine is that if you were on a town water supply, sprinklers are the ideal fire protection for any facility housing horses, animals, and having straw and hay within it. If you can't have a sprinkler system, there are other fire protection and early warning devices, such as smoke detectors, which can provide an early warning to products of combustion, and also heat detection. What we recommended with heat detection is what is called a rate of rise. So in other words, if the temperature starts to rise from a basic 70 degrees and it rises up to 100 degrees, the rate of rise heat detector will pick that up and set off the alarm. And they're a great thing to have within a barn, and it provides early warning. We also recommend that you interconnect the smoke detectors, have them hardwired electrically, and interconnect them back to the farmer's house or to a watchman's facility there, or have it to a central facility alarm company, or to the local fire department. Also, we recommend that you have portable fire extinguishers within the barn, and we recommend that you have them located on the outside of the barn so that in the event the fire is too hot, you will back out of the barn, know where the extinguisher is because it will be located at the exit door, and grab the extinguisher if it's safe to do so, and approach the fire slowly and try and contain or put the fire out.
Now, it's clear to all of us that barn fires are definitely an animal welfare concern. But fires also cause huge financial loss for people, and then there's the emotional toll of losing an animal in a fire, and that can last a lifetime for people. Why aren't we paying attention to this as barn owners?
I think there's a certain amount of complacency that the agricultural industry over the years has got into, that they haven't taken fire safety and prevention and protection of their animals as strongly as they should. And the recent fires, such as Woodbine and Mohawk, and now the Puss Lynch and Mount Forest, has really brought it to the forefront. And when you lose these animals and livelihood for not only the owners of the horses, but all of the staff that work with these animals, it stops and makes the people think that, hey, we should pay more attention here. We should be looking at fire protection, the fire safety, prevention in our barns, and what can we do to make it safer from fire.
So can an education program help me learn to reduce that risk?
We can always learn. You're learning every day, even if you're retired like myself, that the average person that are in the barns these days, and especially at racing facilities, they know animals and they know the horsing industry and racing industry, and bringing the horses up to be able to be trained properly. But they don't know fire safety. And the more fire safety and prevention education that can be provided really helps with the day-to-day operation and how they look after their animals once they're back on the farm, and ensure the safety of those animals and themselves within that facility. And in the long run, the expense to the people that own the facility in the event there is a major fire.